They should have kept her name. Off the books, the container was listed as agricultural samples, bonded transit, no inspection required. I inspected it anyway. Velsen Station runs on two things: the docking fees that keep its council fed, and the quiet understanding that certain Seamergoms the Vert moves through without anyone looking too hard. I had spent 19 years exploiting that understanding. I knew every shell manifest, every recursive bond number, every trick for making a thing disappear inside paperwork until it stopped being a thing and became a line item. It is not a skill anyone brags about at dinner. It is, however, useful. The container seal broke with a hiss of stale recycled air, and I found her curled against the back wall, knees drawn up, one hand pressed flat to the corrugated metal, like she was checking whether it was safe. Touch, slate blue skin, oversized amber eyes blinking in the sudden dock light, small membrane-tipped ears folded flat. She looked at me the way a thing looks at you when it has been looked at badly for a long time. Not with fear exactly, more with a careful neutrality. Like she was reserving judgment on whether I was a new kind of problem. She was no larger than a stack of the transit crates behind her. I looked at the manifest in my hand. Agricultural samples, bonded, no inspection required. I looked at her. I keyed my comm unit and filed her as salvage before I did anything else. Salvage law on Velsen Station is a beautiful, deeply stupid piece of frontier jurisprudence that predates the compact by 40 years. Under its terms, any unclaimed biological or material asset found aboard an uninspected vessel during a voluntary inspection, an inspection, critically, that the dock operator had neither requested nor been billed for, becomes the temporary custodial property of the inspecting party for a period not exceeds 72 hours, pending claim verification. She was filed. She had 12 hours before the bond company's automated system would flag, broken seal, and kick a query up the chain. I gave her water from my kit. She drank it like she'd forgotten what water was and had just been reminded. "Can you walk?" I asked. She considered this seriously. Then she stood up, swayed once, and steadied herself against the wall with a hand that had 3 fingers and a thumb, and was slightly too large for frame, like she hadn't quite grown into it yet. "Good enough," I said. The syndicate's legal fixer arrived 4 hours later. His name, according to his transit card, was Overseer Practical Marin, which is the kind of name that only exists in organizations that have decided irony is for the weak. He had the soft, patient expression of a man who had done this many times and found it tedious rather than difficult. He laid 3 documents on my mess table and folded his hands on top of them. "She is listed as Specimen Unit 7 Thesari, Agricultural Research Consignment, bonded under Kethavar Commercial Charter, Clause 19, Biological Materials in Transit." "That's a lot of words for a child," I said. He didn't blink. "The bond supersedes salvage under Compact Article 14. We'll take the unit now." Poured myself a coffee and didn't offer him one. Article 14 requires the bond to have been filed with the station registry before the salvage claim. "What time did your bond get filed?" A small pause. "That's administrative." "It is," I agreed. "The bond was filed at 06:42 this morning. My salvage claim was filed at 06:39. 3 minutes." I turned the coffee cup in my hands. "You should have filed it faster, sir." He gathered the documents, with the careful movements of a man recalibrating. "Charter itself predates salvage law here. Priority of instrument, Kethavar Commercial Charter," I said, "was registered under Frontier Compact Annex 7, which grants it commercial standing in this sector. Annex 7's instruments, however, explicitly defer to local salvage statute in cases of disputed biological custody." Page 41. The footnote specifically. Footnote that your people put in because it made shell company asset transfers easier 30 years ago. He looked at me for a long moment. "You've done this before," he said. "I've done everything before," I said. "I've just never done it to stop you." He left. He would be back with a revised claim, or with something worse than a claim, and I had maybe 6 hours before one or the other arrived. I went to work. I know gray market ledger architecture the way a surgeon knows which vessels to cut and which to leave alone. The syndicate's ownership chain for the girl ran through 4 shells. A bonded research vehicle registered on Pelham Minor, which was majority held by a transit company on Velsen's sister station, which held a license from a compact-approved agricultural surveyor that had been defunct for 11 years. but whose charter had been renewed twice, automatically without review, which had issued the original specimen bond under a commercial code that technically only applied to non-sapient, biological material. A distinction the syndicate had buried in a subclassification that would never survive scrutiny, but had never received any. Pulled every document, I annotated every gap. The defunct surveyor's charter renewal had a counter-signatory who had died 8 years ago, which meant 2 of the renewals had been fraudulently executed. The transit company's majority holding had been filed under a residential address on Pelham Minor that was a storage unit. The research vehicle's bond had been issued the same day it was dissolved. Each fraud was small. Each fraud was deniable alone. Together they were a rope. I forwarded the full annotated file to the Velsen Station Port Authority, to the Compact's Commercial Registry Bureau, to the Pelham Minor Commercial Court, and, because I believe in redundancy, to 3 separate journalists who cover Compact financial fraud, and who I have occasionally, in my career, given reason to owe me a favor. Then I went to check on her. She was sitting on my bunk with her knees pulled up again, turning a small carved toggle from my jacket pocket over and over in those oversized fingers. She had found it on her own, told me she was curious, which told me she was going to be fine. "They're going to come back," she said. Her voice was thin and precise, like she was carefully measuring how much of it to spend. "Yes," I said. "What happens then?" I sat down in the chair across from her. Outside, through the one porthole the berth had, Velsen Station's dock lights were cycling toward the end of their shift, amber to white to the pale blue of early work hours. Somewhere in the port district below, I could hear the first cargo handlers coming on for the morning run. "Then I'm a dock operator who found unclaimed salvage and filed the appropriate paperwork," I said. "And they're an organization that no longer legally exists." She turned the toggle over once more. She had the careful, measuring quality of a child who had learned that hope was something you spent cautiously, like a currency you weren't sure was still valid. "You know how this works," she said. Not a question. "I know how the paperwork works," I said, which is the same thing. They sent men at the 11th hour. 4 of them, which was either an insult or a miscalculation, and I have never been able to tell the difference with the syndicate. They arrived at the berth door. With the easy confidence of people who had never had the ground shift under a legal argument before. The Port Authority arrived at the 12th hour. They had questions for the 4 men. They had a great many questions, in fact, arising from a commercial fraud referral that had come in overnight from 3 separate jurisdictions, simultaneously. The 4 men were invited to wait in a comfortable administrative room while those questions were sorted out. They are, as far as I know, still waiting. I do not know what becomes of a Thesari child in the Compact system without family documentation, without a home registry, without any paper record of existence. I had some thoughts on the matter. I know a resettlement coordinator on Pelham Minor. I know a Compact family registry clerk who owes me the kind of favor that doesn't expire. I know, as it happens, quite a lot of people in the administrative gaps of interstellar bureaucracy, because I have spent my career in those gaps and the people you meet there tend to remember you. I filed the paperwork myself. It took 11 days and 4 jurisdictions and 1 deeply creative interpretation of a custody provision in the Frontier Compact's Family Law Annex that had been sitting unused since the annex was written. Her name, according to the record that now exists in 3 separate registries and cannot be removed without triggering automatic review flags in 2 more, is Shari Vass. The Vass is mine. She is aware of this and has opinions about it. She expresses by using my coffee mug without asking. I have told her twice to stop. I tell her a 3rd time most mornings. I have not, in 19 years of making things disappear inside paperwork, once managed to make this particular thing disappear. I have stopped trying.